Yep. John, here's the thing. Howie has done an amazing job of drafting. It's one thing to go out in free agency, which they did, and that's always a difficult thing to do, right? Because why is this guy going to be better with you than somebody else? Blah, blah, blah. You go through all those things. Or, does he fit on your team? Saquon's a great example of that. It was the perfect thing to do. They added him to what they'd already built. But what Howie has built is an offensive line, a defensive line. You heard one of the trade being with Carter. I mean, they've got guys that they were willing to take very, very high draft picks, as opposed to going, you know what, we need a quarterback. And then you don't have an offensive line, so the guy gets the crap kicked out of him. And I kind of put Sam Darnold like that in most of his early parts of his career. This year with the Vikings, he had all the explosive people he needed and a decent, not a great, but a decent offensive line, right? So he got sacked a lot, but it sure made him look a hell of a lot better because of the fact that he had three great receivers, a really good couple of tight ends, and a nice running back, and an okay offensive line. So Howie knows how to build the team, and it's amazing to me how many GMs sit out there, John, and have no clue. They just go for the sparkle of, well, he did run a 4.3 at the combine. Yeah, but on the field in full uniform, he runs a 5.0 40 because the guy can't get anybody. I mean, it's really comes down to that sometimes, I think, and it's kind of crazy when you get it. But I think these guys are dead spot on, don't you think?
I did. I thought that was absolutely. And who did they take advantage of with that trade, folks? The Colts and the Cowboys. Yeah. Two teams that have perennially been bad in the last decade. The Cowboys, of course, haven't gone to the Super Bowl. And shoot, Pete, I think your daughter is like 27 years old or something like that, whatever she is. I think it's been that long since the Cowboys were at the big dance.
I think you're right. All right, John. So let's jump into the NFL. One of the things that we were talking about, it starts with Wentz, right? Where do all these quarterbacks end up? Because we already went through the coaching carousel. So I've got a couple of lines, and I'll throw them by you one by one. I think the best fit right now, if he's truly going to keep playing football, I think Aaron Rodgers goes to the Steelers because they're willing to move on from what they did last year, where they get one young quarterback, one old quarterback, and they kind of piecemeal them back and forth. I think they want to have a quarterback for 1 year. That's a team that's a quarterback away, in my opinion, Pittsburgh, from going to the Super Bowl. And they just don't have the right guy there. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is, but I think there's a possibility. How about you?
Well, I think that's a real possibility, Pete. Unfortunately for Justin Fields, it's a real possibility because Justin Fields, of course, was the Bears' #1 pick. He had 3 O coordinators in as many years. The poor kid had no offensive line to speak of. And then when they finally got him some targets, they didn't have enough money, like you said, to pay the offensive line. So he just was, sacked a record number of times, just like Caleb Williams has been sacked a record number of times. So that might be a great fit. It will depend what they're willing to give up because Aaron is expensive, and the Jets know they made a mistake because he played, 5 plays in the first year, and then this year was a bust as well. At least he stayed healthy for the most part. But I think Justin Fields would not be happy about that, but I think that could come to pass, Pete.
It could. I'll go through a couple other ones real quick for you. So Stafford, so he wants to get out of LA unless they want to pay him because he wants the real money. He doesn't have the real money relative to a lot of the other quarterbacks that are out there. So he wants a little bit more money. His brother-in-law just got the quarterback job at the Giants. So I think he's got a little leverage on LA right now to say, hey, look, maybe I go and play with the Giants then, the hell with it. But so that's a possibility. Cam Ward probably gets drafted by somebody. Maybe it's New Orleans, maybe it's whomever the hell it is, but somebody will go for the quarterback early because they always have to do that. It's not a good move, I don't think. But how about Kirk Cousins, John? Where does he end up? I think here's the ones I've got for you. He played for Stefanski, who is now the head coach at Cleveland, but when he was with the Vikings. So maybe does he go to Cleveland? Cleveland doesn't have anybody. They got a bunch of nobodies, but they
Jameis Winston.
Well, we got Famous. they do have that. They've also got a guy who as long as he can stay out of jail and he can stay out of this and he doesn't have his, Achilles and all the rest of it. I mean, that, it's a nightmare for those guys and all the money and everything else. How about Sam Darnold though? Here's what I got for you, Darnold. Darnold goes to one of these three, but I think it's the Raiders, number one. So does he go to the Raiders? He gets there with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll didn't coach him, but Pete Carroll knows him well, USC days. And I think he likes what he saw this past year for Pete Carroll. So that would make a lot of sense. Pete's a defensive coach. You can have somebody else coaching him. I think that's pretty interesting spot. Maybe the Saints, maybe Cleveland. Somebody who's ready to actually make the next step is where I think Sam could go. Could be the Raiders. And I think it could be a lot of fun if he actually got there. What do you think about that one?
I like that one. And you already mentioned Stafford, Pete. If Stafford leaves, I think they go for Darnold.
Yep.
I'm not kidding you. I think if Stafford, if they get something for him, or if it just ends up being that, I don't think they're going to franchise tag him, because franchise tagging a quarterback these days is $45 million, $50 million. That's because you got to pay him. What is it? The top 4 or top 5, Pete?
Something like that, John. Yeah. So I can't remember the number. I know it's north of 41 million. So whatever it is, it's a big number.
Yeah. So if Stafford leaves, and he shouldn't. He should do what he wants to do, but they shouldn't let him go.
No.
But if they do, they got to get somebody like Darnold or whatever, because they got a big stadium to fill, Pete.
Yep.
And if they just bring up some rook, they're not going to fill that stadium.
No, I'm with you. All right, let's go to the most exciting thing in the planet Earth, the NBA All-Star Game, John. So here's where we talked about hockey and how great that was. And we know the NFL stinks, but when it comes to the NBA, how about this? Too much Kevin Hart is one of the things that people are talking about. The new format is another. Everybody seems to hate it. Everybody thinks it stinks. You got Draymond Green, a player who's out there and being probably as critical, and I think he should be, as critical as he wants to be against the NBA. He throughout the All-Star game, John, he's putting out stuff about what a piece of crap this game is and how it's awful. And the format is stupid. Unwatchable is the thing that I walked away with. Everybody that I saw who's an NBA player was using the word unwatchable. Kenny Smith over at TNT, those guys over there, he said this was a format failure. They better not do it ever again. So a lot of really, really good endorsements to what Silver's doing here with the NBA, right? I mean, he's also the same guy, John. I will say this. He's a great negotiator. He got an 11-year, $76 billion deal for the NBA through ESPN and all the rest of these guys. The NFL is much bigger. In 2021, they got $110 billion. So they both have these huge numbers. NFL's bigger. NFL makes a lot more sense. The viewership is down 19% versus last year and down 25%, including the NBA TV, if you include that. So we know that there's problems. The NBA is not addressing them. As a matter of fact, they're doing something even worse. They're creating an all-star game that people are all talking about as maybe the worst thing they've ever seen. So what does Silver have to do? Just walk away and say, thanks a lot, guys. It was great being here, or what?
His legacy sucks, Pete. He's just killed his legacy. Yeah, it's a great money grab by him. Like you say, 70 mil, I'd take it. Yeah. But if I wanted my legacy to be that I was a great executive,